Hello, and welcome to the Crude Report, a podcast series on global crude oil markets by Argus Media. I'm Gus Vasquez, and I'm the editor of the America's Crude team, and I'm pleased to welcome Scott Phillips, who is the America's Crude market reporter covering the U.S. pipeline crude market, particularly the Gulf Coast. So today we want to talk to you about what is happening with the differential or the spread between sweet and sour grades in the U.S. Gulf Coast, because there's been quite a bit of pricing activity recently. And just to set the stage a little bit, let me just remind you all that last year we did have a 180 million barrel drawdown in the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And that was a sale that was brought about by some disruptions to supply following the issues between Russia and Ukraine. And now what that basically means is that SPR, those inventory levels are right now at the lowest they have been since the 1980s. So quite a huge impact there. So Scott, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what's the next thing that's about to happen and what prices are doing right now?
Yeah, sure. Happy to jump in here. Basically, the Department of Energy is looking to start refilling those SPR inventories after that big 180 million barrel drawdown you just spoke about. So right now, the SPR is due to receive 3 million barrels of crude in both August and September. But also, more recent solicitation was issued for supplies for October and November. So in both of those months, about 3 million barrels of crude is going to be returned to the SPR. So the Argus Sour Crude Index, right, which is a basket assessment that covers U.S. Gulf Coast sour crude grades, has narrowed its discount to the Argus WTI Houston assessment, which is a light sweet assessment priced in Houston. So right now for August trade to date, the ASCII assessment is averaging about a 30-cent per barrel discount to WTI Houston, and this is contracting from around $1.60 per barrel discount in the prior trade month of July.
Right. So quite a big change there. And just to make it clear for our listeners, when we talk about the Argus Sour Crude Index or ASCII, that is just a basket of medium sour grades that we have at the Gulf Coast. So it's basically comprised of Mars, SGC, which is Southern Green Canyon, and Poseidon. And the methodology for that is fairly straightforward. We just take all the transactions for each of those three grades and we combine them into a single volume weighted average calculation that then gives you a differential. So that's when you say, that things have moved from $1.60 to 30 cents between ASCII and WTI Houston. That's the comparison that we're making there. So then what is the next thing that's going to happen, Scott?
Yeah, so basically the US SPR is due to receive supplies to try to refill inventories, but so far for the sales that have closed and for the new solicitation, the SPR has requested U.S. produced sour crude. So that means that our ASCII grades are well placed to provide that supply. So far, the sales or the purchases from the SPR, have requested supplies that are going to be delivered to the Big Hill SPR site, which is near Houston. So that site is near where Southern Green Canyon is actually delivered to the Texas coast, right? So Southern Green Canyon is maybe the most likely candidate to provide the SPR supply. And right now, so far for August trade, we have seen SGC, which is Southern Green Canyon, tighten its discount to WTI Houston more than the other ASCII grades. So right now, the average for August for Southern Green Canyon is a 50-cent per barrel discount to WTI Houston. Last month, it was around $2 per barrel. But it's also worth noting that the Louisiana sour grades, both Mars and Poseidon, that are included in ASCII have also increased or also tightened their discounts to Houston by quite a bit. For instance, Mars so far for August has tightened its discount by about $1.30 per barrel.
Right. So this is all coming on the sour side. So I guess that the story here is the sours are really strengthening, and the sweets, I guess, are just kind of fairly stable. So that's how we get this big kind of squeeze in the spread between the sweet sour grades at the Gulf Coast, right? But it's not just a U.S. issue. I mean, we do have some global support for some of these medium to heavy sour grades as well, because as everyone knows, I mean, we've had OPEC plus production cuts, and then Russia as well has been making some moves. So the most recent news we had was Saudi Arabia was going to extend that 1 million barrel per day production cut that they'd had announced for June, and they were going to extend that to July and August. And then you've got Russia, who, well, I mean, you never know with Russia, but they announced that they were going to cut 500,000 barrels per day of production in May, and then they've come out again and said that they're going to reduce output another 500,000 barrels in August. So obviously, we don't know yet if that's truly going to happen, but the announcement is certainly there, and the markets are reacting, right?
Right. And it's it's interesting that we have U.S. has reduced its reliance on imports from those OPEC countries in the last decade. And these days, around 2/3 of our crude imports actually come from Canada. Although, I mean, of course, we still do import meaningful supplies from those Middle East Gulf countries. But it's also worth saying that U.S. sours compete in the global market now that we can actually export them. So one story we've been following this year is that Chinese demand has really supported Mars prices this year. So Mars can be loaded onto VLCCs from the Louisiana offshore oil port, and we have seen some foreign demand for that grade, which is really supported prices this year. So basically what that means is that since the U.S. grades compete in the global market now, a tighter global market for medium sour grades can support U.S. prices as well.
Okay, so I mean, with that, I think that kind of tells the whole story. So again, quite a bit going on in the U.S. with the SPR, so that's an additional demand that's coming. But then you have the kind of supply cuts at the global level that are also kind of boosting sour prices, generally speaking, not just in the U.S. So combined, we see that, yeah, clearly those have had quite a pricing impact in grades like Mars and SGC and Poseidon. I guess going forward, we probably expect that strength to remain, right?
Right, yeah, because those SPR, the SPR refills due to continue at least through the fall now. So another 3 million barrels return in each of those months should support U.S. sour crude prices.
All right. Well, that's, I think, the whole story right there, and we shall see how things unfold. And if there's more to talk about, we might come back and do an update on this. But for now, I think we will leave it there. So, listeners, thank you so much for your time. And if you feel like you would like to learn more and need more information and daily coverage of America's crude oil markets, you might want to then consider subscribing to the Argus America's Crude Report if you don't do so already. That is the report where we publish all these prices that we've been talking about. So that's where you'll find Mars, WTI Houston, ASCII assessments. And you can also find more information about Argus services at www.argusmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of the Crude Report.